interactive as possible, but unfortunately, menti.com seems not to be working, and I see many of you are not versed with menti.com. So we shall struggle. You'll forgive me. I'm not a believer in lecturing. I read a book in 2017 by a Brazilian scholar called The Pedagogy of the Blessed, called Paul Freire. And he was talking about what education does to us. He was calling it a banking concept of education. That the teacher comes, banks deposits into you the knowledge they have in their head, and then they expect to withdraw it at examination time. So at examination time, you go for withdrawal of what they deposited in you by writing what they have taught you. So since then I developed the narrative where I always want an interactive session. Like I learn from someone, they also learn from me, because we are not passive subjects. No, we are vessels that contain a lot of knowledge within us. So you'll forgive me, the Zoom thing we have is not able to allow us to interact as much as possible, but I will talk with Frank, the Minister of Zoom and ICT. Maybe tomorrow we can have more features on the Zoom app, which can allow us to interact, which can allow us to know each other more, to learn more from each other. And before I begin the policy process presentation, I want to know people are still with us. So I will ask all of us to put on our videos and wave to each other. Put on your video and wave to. Let's put on our videos and wave to each other. I will lead by example. Yeah, Frank, I can see you with Osama bin Laden's beard. Put on your video, colleagues, and wave to each other. Frank, that is Nyaribi. Oh, Ivan. How are you, my brother? Yeah, thank you, Frank. Angela, yes, I can see Angela. You can even say from the video, but this is a training of young people. This is a training of young people. You feel free to say.
How do you want us to say? Show us.
Eh?
Show us.
Frank, you are younger than me. You can say better than I do.
No, you first show us how you want us to say.
No, me as a former priest, it is hard. Eh? I am seeing some examples of slaying. Flavia, yo. Yeah, Flavia, nice. Hawina tried and she feared. I don't know why. Anosias, good. Yeah, let's not make it very serious, Vanang. These are young people. I think I'm the oldest here. So
I'm the oldest.
Now, if me the Mzee, I'm trying to be as .com as possible, then I would expect all of us to at least be 2 minutes of slaying, 2 minutes of slaying. Videos. Those are I will share with you. Karisha put on your video Karisha at Mango, Mahad, Margaret, Amos, Elijah, Marion, Anita, Marigolet, Venny, Brenda. Put on your videos and it's a matter of national importance. I can see Onesimus. Okay. Thank you for that. Yeah, we shall need to constantly remind ourselves that we are in a meeting, and with Marigolet is that mask to remind ourselves constantly that we are in a meeting, and be as interactive as possible. Let's not be very seriousness is good, but I don't think better is through having that. Let's use an app a little bit. Someone says videos, hope tomorrow you have the background so you can see your videos. So, policy formulation, the policy process. If you remember very well as I was talking, I talked about something called the optics. and politics or policy. Because policy is politics. Policy is the same arm of politics. When people are making their promises, they are making them to win votes. But when they will have to actualize those promises into actionable points, and that's what we call policy. So policy is politics, not necessarily arm of politics. So the policy formulation process goes through a very long stage.
Prosper.
Yes, Frank.
You're breaking a bit.
Okay, you can hear me now.
You try and change and see.
Even now?
Maybe try again and see, because there's something. There's something.
There's some background.
I think there is better somehow.
Okay. I'm fine now.
Now it has gone back.
Gone back to default settings. Now, what about now?
Yes. Now it's good.
I tapped my phone.
Okay. Where do you stay, sir? Don't answer.
I stay in a village deep in Chowaturi zone, where you normally buy me poxa. Anyway, this meeting is live on Zoom. I mean on YouTube. So I was saying the process of making policy. Someone yesterday asked me and said, "So we shall be learning out from that policies," and I was like, "No, because policy formulation is the ambit of the state and government. For us as non-state actors, we cannot influence its formulation. So this is not teach you how to formulate policy, no. It is take you through the process in which policy is formulated, and then in research, and actually even policy itself, there is what we call the window of opportunity. The policy window. Now, when there is a policy window, that's why I can now come in. You get? So during the formulation of the policy, there are always what we call windows of policy windows. Now, you as an advocate, you can come through those policy windows, and I will take you through those policy windows. There is a scholar called Joshua Kingdom, and he wrote a thesis on policy windows. Like, how do you come in? What are the periods that you can effectively come in and be able to influence policy? But it is through the policy formulation process that you can be able to influence policy, either at formulation. So this presentation mainly is about discussing the policy process. When I was saying that the evolution of policy from policy science to policy process by Laswell, 1965, was based on the policy process concept. So this one I will be discussing the policy process. I also present opportunities. If you are a civil society organization, Israel Forum, Uganda Rights NGO Network, children something from where my brother Vincent has said he comes from, Canary, those of us in civil society, where do you come in from? Because in my introduction, I told you that we struggle with influencing policy because we don't have enough evidence and database that you can use based on to do it. So if you want to begin influencing, how do you come in? So I will be showing those opportunities, those policy windows. So policy making and policy process. Policy making, the activity of deciding on new processes. Here you are deciding on new policies, you are deciding. So doing something on smoking, doing something on teenage pregnancy. So you are trying to decide, you are weighing options, alternatives. So if we are to provide, I was writing a position paper with a group of INGOs on education continuity. And as we were drafting, of course, as a lead drafter, I had put in something on what we call double shifting, so that we can be able to cover the years that children have lost by being home. So introduce double shifting in schools so that we accelerate the education through acceleration, so that someone that would have taken 1 year to finish primary one takes 1 term to finish primary one. And as we were discussing it, someone asked me something I left behind, and she was like, but wait, in accelerating education, don't we risk the mental health of the children? Because in double shifting, we're talking about introducing learning on Saturday. I will not risk the mental health of teachers, students. but they don't have time for themselves. They're only in class. And I was like, wait, oh, so this is an alternative we had forgotten. So in deciding new policies, you debate a lot of alternatives, and you take the most viable, which has minimal disadvantages. So that's the process of policy making. But the policy process is the process by which politics is turned into politics. You're turning politics into the process by which politics is turned into policy. So from talking, you're getting to actions now. From blah, 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 you are now actualizing the talking. You are getting action oriented. So policy making, you are deciding on new policies. You are deciding on alternatives, getting this alternative, dumping it, admitting another alternative. Policy process, you are turning politics into policy. You are getting the NRM manifesto because to won the elections and turning it into policy alternatives. National Development Plan, you are coming up with new policies, new laws, and everything. New budgets, orienting them to what the manifesto was promising to do for the people. So how is policy made? Appropriate people, good intentions, clear goals, clear means. That's the idea. We believe people are appropriate, the ones who are making it. We believe the intentions of the policy are very good. We believe we have a clear goal in mind, and the means to it are very clear and clean. That is ideal. That is utopian. But is it in the real sense? Appropriate people, were they? The difference between formal right and actual policy maker. So, you know, a law must be passed by MPs, but haven't they passed by champans for a caucus? Are they still appropriate? Has the appropriateness been influenced by someone else? The intention. Yeah, it is critical that, you know, as policies are being made, as laws are being made, not every policy is a rational solution for a problem. Actually, some are making the problem worse. So the intention is not always rational. It's not always scientific. Some policies are symbolic. The square is called stone. Some policies are made because there is money to spend. Some policies are made because there is a policy window, Joshua Kingdom, according to Joshua Kingdom. So the intention is you must first weigh the intentions. If they are coming with bail, what is the intention? If we are passing policies of social protection, what is the intention? It's not because the World Bank is giving you more money. Are we trying to spend money? If we are restructuring government like we did in the 1980s, the structural adjustment program to the SAPs, are we restructuring government because the right thing to do? Because World Bank and the International Monetary Fund are promised to give Uganda money if it can cut the size of government, if it can sell government enterprises and allow the market to work, the private market to work. By selling Uganda enterprises, you are selling Uganda Dairy Corporation, you are selling Uganda Airlines, you are selling the agro mansions, Uganda Hotel Industries, Uganda Transport, and allowing them to be managed by the private market. What's the private market? It's marketplace of demand and supply at present. So some points will be done because there is money to spend. World Bank is giving money, European Union is giving money, UN is giving money, donors are giving money for it. So donors are influencing. I think I'm not put on the training money, but I also want to train you because for those of you who are in energy world, to also how to influence donor spending. Because also it influences policy in the wrong way. Can you learn how to influence donor spending? So, on money to spend. Third, is there a policy window? For instance, during an election, there is always a policy window. People are campaigning, so you can come and say, you know what? Let us cut the size of government. Let us increase the districts. You give us a kingdom here. We want to feel part of this group. Give us a kingdom. And it will be given to you because it was a promise. I think Kasese was promised to the kingdom of Rwenzuru was promised to the Bakonjo during the 2001 elections. Yesterday was very tough on the man. And to make it, so he said, no, I will give you a kingdom and you break off from Tor. So because there was a policy win and there was no clear intention, now the king is exiled in Kampala. His kingdom was bombed down. On goals, not all policies have clear goals. Some have multiple goals. For instance, National Development Plan has multiple goals on health, on nutrition, on education, on social protection, on employment, on everything. Some have no goals at all. Some policies have no goals at all. For instance, what's the goal behind creating constituencies in parishes? There is a constituency in Karamoja for the EAP that are put to 1,000 people who vote, but they have an MP. The City Council of Kampala has more people who vote for him than an MP for the EAP people. So what is the goal there? The goal behind the increasing size of government. So some policies have no goals at all. Some have shifting goals. Goals change. For instance, in 1995, the intention of putting in Article 112 was to stop Obote from coming back to contest for power because he was above 75. But in 2017, the person who had put it in was now 75 and he wanted to contest. So what did you shift the goals of why you put in Article 112 and change it because the goals have shifted? I don't know if you are getting more of this. So some policies have shifting goals. Goals are shifting according to the political dynamics of the time. That's why the constitution, they say constitution is not cast in stone as the supreme word, as the supreme law. That's why laws are amended. Parliament amends the laws once the goals have changed. You amend it. The Public Order Management Act may be changed because the intention of that act was done. So it can even be nullified and say no, it's no longer important. Some have contested goals. One of them is this one on removing bail. We all know the contestation around it. People are fighting. No, you can't change. Others are fighting. You change. So goals are the aspect of goals multiple, no goals shifting and contested. Means the means we are talking about to what will take you there. If you have the policy, how would you achieve it? The tools. Not all policies have clear and suitable means. Some have no means, no budget, no manpower, limited, wrong, or even assumed means. Because you know to actualize a policy, for instance, social protection, given costing, you cost the policy. You don't cost the law, but you cost the policy. And you begin saying, and so that one, we shall have this amount of money for this. So that two, I know, for instance, the National Child Policy has a costing of about 200 something billion through a space of 5 years. So if it has no budget, it has no means to actualize it. Manpower. Last in 2019, Parliament passed the Data Protection and Privacy Act, and was supposed to create the office of the Data Protection Officer. That office has not been created up to now, so there's no way you can actualize the law because the manpower required for it is not there. The National Children's Act 2006 was supposed to create the office of the National Children's Authority. It was only created, I think, last year or 2019. So it means that for the 3 years we had the act in place, they didn't have the manpower therapy decision. That's why I talked about the legal, policy, and institutional framework. Then limited, wrong, or even assumed means. You may be assume if we want to increase youth employment, the best thing we can do is youth arrival program. So you inject the money in, but it does not bring anything. Maybe what we need are access to credit, for them to access credit and get loans and begin to build their own industry. Maybe what people need is to go out while they work for you, for you to solve the problem of what of unemployment. So some means are either limited, wrong, or even just assumed and they cannot be worked upon. So what are the elements of the policy process? In the footnotes, I quoted once again Harold Russell. He has 7 stages: intelligence, you are gathering; promotion, you are creating a problem; prescription, you are providing a solution for the problem you have created; invocation, you are you are getting buy-in of the people; application, you are now implementing; termination, the policy has served its end or it has not served it, so you terminate. Then you are praised, and no, this one did for us something. Then you begin the process again to come up with a new policy. So to better understand the policy process and to make policy analysis easier, because of course, as you talk about policy advocacy, I'm referring some stages and I'm getting them from how Howlett and Mesh they wrote in 2003 and different kind of processes are on page 13, 14. Can you hear me? I don't know if I'm breaking. Someone is saying I'm breaking. What's happening? Okay. I'm sorry about the network issue. I will try to resolve it as we go throughout the week. So I was saying, to better understand the policy process and to make policy analysis easier, these stages are very crucial. One is problem definition. Because as I've said, the policy is meant to solve a problem. There's a problem you are solving. Yes, sorry, Mary, network is killing us. No, we shall not die. We shall survive. We shall do CPR and survive. So you must know what is the problem I'm trying to solve. Because if you don't have the problem, you can't have a solution. Or if you define a wrong problem, you will define a wrong solution. If someone is suffering from ulcers and you want to give them Panadol, it will just take away the pain. So problem definition is very critical. And that's why now that's why I talk about, when I talked about ability to gather evidence and data. So that you use it to influence the problem. I will give you an example. There is someone called Magar, Dr. Magar. Actually, that book of mine was stolen by David Nyaribi. If he's in the meeting, David should bring my book back. And it's called The Role of Think Tanks in Africa. And he was defining an issue. One of the issues is the structure adjustment programs. I always get to them because we are where we are because of those policies that were taken at that.
We Prosper, are you still there?
I will come back.
Okay,
I am going nowhere. I was saying, in problem identification, Nyaribi stole my book on the role of think tank. So when Nyaribi comes back, let him bring my book before he talks. Before he talks. And I was talking about the structure adjustment program. The IMF and the World Bank, they are not called as the Bretton Woods Institutes because they are based in Bretton Woods in California. Car washers are going in when I am in. Sorry. When the IMF into them, there is a man called Aryong and Gray. Anyway, not a man, they are authors. They are authors. And they described the period between 1980 to 2000 as the lost decades of development. And actually, some countries like Namibia, Botswana, and Lesotho went into what is known as the legislation. If you're an economist, you know the legislation happens when we are
Prosper is again off. Onesimus, I see you. I think you can be supporting Prosper as he handles internet issue. Onesimus.
Okay, thank you. So Prosper is having issues with his network. You'll be joining us again in about a minute. So like already was saying, was on the part of problem identification. that you cannot have a solution to a problem you don't know. So you have to first do problem identification and then definition of the problem. And then you can define the appropriate approaches that could then be defined as policies to kickstart the process. So Prosper is back, so let him take on the session again.
Yeah, I am going to lift what has shown me today. I was still defining problem definition and how crucial it is for us to do the work we do. If you want to have very good policies and laws, and I give you an example of scholars, the African scholars, Gray and Ariong, they say that the period between 1980 to 2000 was the lost decade of development, because African countries are just jumped into the structure adjustment programs without understanding the real context of the problem. That's why you saw many of our parents lost jobs, companies were lost, these Uganda Airlines, Uganda Brewery, which makes for us beer, is now private. So we buy beer at very high rates, which is not good to us. Uganda Transport Corporation, where people just jump into buses and they go. We are now having a problem with traffic jam because everyone has bought a taxi, because that was dismantled. We don't have any local capital. That's why you can't be capitalist, because you can only be capitalist if you have capital. Our capital is foreign owned. We only have Standard Bank as the local bank in Uganda. Most of the banks are foreign owned. Standard, DFCU from UK, and whatever. So because we sold off our local banks, National Commercial Bank, which was owned by from Chigezi, and everything, we sold off cooperatives. So we poorly defined the problem because it had been defined by a white man from somewhere, and we are still suffering up to this point in time. That's why we have very usurious interest rates, 24% per annum. So if I took 100 million today, I would be putting 24 million per annum. If the loan is for 10 years, it means at the end of 10 years, I would be paying 240 million out from a loan of 100 million. That is more than 300% interest. So when the problem is poorly defined, you will have a very poor policy, and the effects are the common man and woman. And you are someone influencing the policy process. Make sure you don't fall into the trap of poorly defining a problem. Define it very well. Research. Have the evidence, have the data, have the very robust policy alternatives. Then after defining the problem, you go to setting the agenda. Because as I've said, you as a non-state actor, you don't have the privilege of formulation of policy. Formulation of policy is the preserve of government. So you begin the agenda setting process. I will take you through some other module on legislation. Now, at agenda setting, for instance, if you have identified that many girls are getting pregnant, why are they getting pregnant? There is no law that protects them from child marriage. So after defining the problem and you have put your solutions, you now go to a policy maker. That's why you can influence from here. This is why you define these two stages. That's why you influence the policy process from. So at agenda setting, for instance, you identify a favorable MP. And you know what? You go and meet the MP or even a group of MPs. Right now, we have my master thesis is on legislative advocacy, and I'm focusing on parliamentary forums, because those are the gates of access for you to access parliament, the parliamentary forums. So you meet the people you think will be integral in helping your policy issue get onto the policy agenda, get onto what the thing for parliament, the order paper. If it's supposed to be done by a ministry, maybe it is a commissioner that is in charge of policy. So you meet the commissioner and sell them. At this stage, there is what we call buy-in. You are selling your idea and they are buying into it. That's why we normally take them to expensive hotels. So when the I'm with Onesimus, so I have now found a new trick. Once when the laptop goes off, I will be using the alternative. We are not going to lose everything. So
Okay,
from
thank
agenda
you,
setting,
thank you.
from agenda setting, you see we are finding alternatives. So I am suspecting poor network. So what I use, I get Onesimus near me and use his phone. You see? So from agenda setting, we got policy formulation. Now you are drafting. You are drafting the policy. You're formulating it, even maybe giving it a name. National policy on disaster management and preparedness, because you have identified the problem. Maybe you are trying to formulate a policy now. Let's call it a policy on corruption. I mean, a law on corruption, the anti-corruption policy. I mean, act. So when you now have it, so you are formulating. But when you formulate, you have to select alternatives, because policies come with different alternatives. Because this one will come with this one will say, let's hang poor corrupt. You get? Another one says, no, let's imprison them. Another one says, no, let's not imprison them. Let's make them lose their jobs for maybe 30 years if we find them guilty of corruption. Another one says, no, let us make them sell their property and get our money back. So it's up, now you are choosing, selecting alternatives. Which alternative do I go with? Which alternative works best? Which alternative has least implications? For instance, someone who says, let's hang poor corrupt. When you are weighing the alternatives, you will find that hanging right now is outdated. The international policy frameworks don't call for hanging. They say hanging is outdated. You'd rather imprison them for life. So you drop that alternative. Oh no, I remember when we were trying to influence the sexual offences bill, there was a proposal that someone, Onesimus, you can come back for your phone. I'm back. Onesimus, you can come back for your phone. So sorry, I was telling Onesimus to come for his phone so that he can go back to the laptop and share. Now, I was telling about the sexual offences bill. When we were trying to legislate to influence it, by that time was the parliamentary forum on youth, and it was one of the serious legislations we had taken up. There was a proposal that we could get a sexual offences register in the law. That if, for instance, someone accuses you of rape or defilement or child marriage, there is a register where your name is, and if you want to look for a job, someone can just search and know, Prosper was convicted of rape or defilement. If you want to, if it's a government job or anything, and once you, so that register is always used everywhere you go. It is on you. It's like a mark on your head. And we're trying to debate and say, but wait, what if you are wrongly convicted? Someone lied against you, or an alibi in it, you cannot get out of it, all evidence points to you, but you are innocent. You are just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it can happen. And then there's that register, really. And for the whole of your life, you are maybe 25, everywhere you go, people know, this one is a rapist, this one is a fire, this one. So we are trying to weigh that option. And I can tell you, we as men who are in that process, we said no, that yes, we don't agree with these things, but a sexual offenders register for a country where we don't have a robust legal framework is dangerous. It will be used to peanuts. It's the same thing like why people are saying, no, the alternative of removing bail is dangerous. Not because we want to see someone who has killed another and getting out on bail, but because they know it can be misused to settle political scores. So we need, when you are selecting alternatives in the formulation stage, you have to weigh. So after selecting alternatives, of course, you adopt the policy. If it is a policy, the ministry adopts it, cabinet adopts the policy. If it's a sub-county, it adopts that, whatever action plan. If it's a law, parliament passes it, it becomes an act, you take it to the president, and the president assents to it, so you begin implementing at the implementation stage. That's where you now begin the post-evaluation. If it's an act of parliament and you want to, and you can now come back in, you as an state actor at the evaluation stage, you can now come back in and do your post-legislative scrutiny for an act and see these things are not working, let us amend it. You amend the act of parliament. That's why you normally see Children's Act as amended, Constitution of Uganda as amended. Like those things, amendments, because they are allowed in law. If it is a policy, you now review, provide your evidence, provide your data, and show them people, you know what, this cannot work. This policy can't work. It is outdated. Let's come up with a new policy that can address the issues of the common man and so at evaluation, you now come in again. But at implementation is really a work of the state, of the government in power. We, NGOs which provide services to the people, we are doing it on our own. It should be the work of the government. But you can still influence implementation. Maybe you can show them and say, you know what, you are providing relief services, but people should not be getting push. Maybe they should be getting rice. Or you should be giving them maize seedlings for them to plant their maize instead of waiting for you to provide them with maize flour to cook. You know, you can be able to, you can provide alternatives at the implementation stage, but main implementation should be the preserve of the state or the government. So the process is like this: definition, and then it is a cycle because problems never end. After evaluation, you come back to the definition and get back to the cycle. It's a cycle. Problems never end. Only that by the time the policy becomes obsolete or outdated, it should at least have solved some percentage of the problems. So when you are defining, you are not coming back to all the problem as it was. That one would be a killer. So problem definition again, and you come back to the cycle. Even if we do what, we can't end child marriage because people are with us. Those who marry young kids, who want to marry the young kids are with us. So, but we should be solving some problems, reducing it. And we are going to come back every now and then. Coming back, we are defining, we are reformulating, we are reselecting alternatives, we are re-implementing, we are re-evaluating every time. Problems never end. Even in the US, which is the most developed country with a $28 trillion economy. The economy of Africa is only $1 trillion. The US has a $28 trillion economy, but still they campaign on the basis of problems and benefits. Our efforts tax cuts always in a cycle. Only it should not be as bad as it was when we were beginning it. That's where my focus would be. So these are the stages of the policy process, and you must know them and know where do I come in as an analyst, as an advocate, even as a policy maker. If I'm an MP, I could have fortunate was contesting in Ruchiga. So problem definition, it's always difficult to define a policy problem. Always difficult because different people have different problems. What you define as a problem is not a problem to the other. It's like on poverty. You know, poverty is one of the most multifaceted problems on earth. For instance, one time I asked someone, I am in Karamoja, I am sleeping in a manyatta, but I have 100 cows. I am sleeping in a manyatta, but I have 100 cows. Because you see me going naked, you would define me as poor. But then you have Frank, who is an employee of Action Aid, sleeping in an apartment, driving in a car, taking Uber, eating from Piato and Cafe Javas, owning the latest brand of iPhone, the latest brands of MacBooks, dressing in shoes of 400, 500, having expensive belts, having an iWatch, and you define Frank as being rich. But is Frank really rich? Is he richer than someone who's owning 100 heads of cattle in Karamoja because he sleeps in a manyatta? So defining policy problem is always a problem itself. That's why it takes a lot of objectivity, a lot of rationality, and a lot of understanding of the context. You can't come and classify someone who has 100 cows that is poor because you have seen him sleeping in a hut. And then you classify someone whose salary ends on the first day is paid as being rich. So what is the problem? Why is the problem? That's the thing we should be asking as we're trying to define the problem. What is the problem? Why is it a problem? Is it a problem?
Prosper, you're breaking again.
Focusing on it. Is there one find, for instance, poverty as I am back. I will go and come back so you will get used to come back. I was giving you an example that if you don't properly define a problem, you will have even people not taking up the alternative you have brought for them. And I was giving in Ghana, some NGO say that women were suffering because they were spending more time collecting water from water points. Getting me?
No, we are not.
You can hear me.
A bit. I think maybe you can use Onesimus audio as you. Yes, there.
I was asking.
Yes. There. I can hear you. Okay. Oh, Onesimus. Onesimus, are you there? Oh, yeah, Onesimus is also off. I think he has dropped. Okay. Not yet stable.
I hope. I truly hope now.
Okay, now.
So is
Yes, there is fine. You're off again. Oh, Onesimus. Okay, sorry about that. We've lost Onesimus and Prosper, but they are joining in just in a few. Today's internet is not stable from his end.
Frank, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I'm sorry, but I hope the presentation makes people forgive me for the bad network. A problem. People don't see it as a problem. And there's an example. An NGO took bottles in Ghana because they were saying women were suffering. These our feminist friends, sisters, among women are suffering. They are spending more time fetching water at the water points, and by the time they get home, they are tired. So they constructed for them bottles. After some time, they discovered the women were not using those bottles. And they so good in if you want to be a good policy analyst. And they discovered that women preferred moving long distances because the long distances allowed them to go into Rugambo. To chat, the stories of women, those parliaments we have in Sarons. So women were not willing to use the boats that were near their homes. They would prefer walking long distance to a water point, to a well, to a spring, to a swamp, to fetch water, because in the process of walking, they would have more time to discuss with their colleagues, with fellow women, as opposed to fetching water, which was maybe, let's say, 500 meters away from them. So what does it show you? It shows you that the problem had been poorly defined as women having to walk long distances to fetch water. It was not their problem, they're not complaining. So you come with your boss, they will refuse them. So if you're a policy maker or a policy advocate or an analyst, you must be intentional on which definition is more likely to be accepted as the definition. Which problem is going to be accepted as the problem? You can't go to Saudi Arabia and tell them that they don't have democracy. They are a kingdom. It's not their problem, it's their kingdom. You can't tell them that you can't have elections here, so you should begin rioting. No. They know it's a kingdom, a king is not elected. The king is inherited. Are we together, friends? So, there are problems and conditions which we must understand when we are in a problem definition. One is, problems are something we can do something about. Conditions are things we cannot change. Problems are something we can do something about. Conditions are things we cannot influence or even change. And so you must understand something. Is this a condition? Do I have any chance of influencing it? And I said no. Before, when I was still into this hardcore advocacy work, action aid, what, we were talking about electoral reforms. But the prevailing condition at that time was not in favor of electoral reforms. So you know that these are conditions, they may leave them. Even if you bring the laws on the floor, they won't be passed. So you leave them. But there are things you can influence. For instance, you talk about influencing how local leaders are voted. That is fine. But you can talk about changing the Presidential Elections Act. That's a condition right now. You allow this prevailing political situation. I can't influence this. Let me leave it and focus on what we can change. But there are conditions which can turn into social problems. Some of them are social changes. For instance, we have had lockdown, children are home, so they are more exposed to violence. So you can find solutions around that. Technological and scientific changes. Before COVID, today we would be meeting maybe in Garuga for 1 week, training as we feel the breeze of Lake Victoria, and then the evening we go in the swimming pool. But COVID has come, we are now on Zoom. We will struggle to even tell people turn on their videos, see them. But then how would we begin innovating around to create, and how would we even become into problems on themselves? For instance, we have now children who spend more time on the internet. The internet has a lot of information and data that children should not be consuming, but they are consuming it. We're having more. There's a book called Laudato Si, I presume I wrote by Pope Francis, and it talks about mental information overload and how it can create mental problems because people are accessing a lot of information on the internet platform. So you will have more addicts, you will have more mental health cases. So how would you begin identifying those things that you are sure you can now begin prescribing solutions before they become issues, before they become adverse? Then there can be a shift from a condition to a problem. And that one, if you're a policy analyst, if you're an advocate, you should be keeping an eye on them and know this shift creates a very big trigger for me to begin setting the agenda for policy influence. You remember the 3 times the things I talked about here? Agenda setting after problem definition. So where you see a shift that now this condition is beginning to change, the president is beginning to change a little bit on this stance, you now come in and begin influencing the agenda at that point, setting it. Then conditions can also be defined as problems in several ways. One, there are conditions which violate important values. For instance, torture. So if you are torturing people in Uganda, yet the UN passed the convention on against torture, it means you are violating important rights. And as an advocate, I can now, based on that, use the UN framework to come and now try to change it from a condition, if it is allowable, make it look like it's violating important values, and turn it into a problem for me to begin prescribing a solution and setting an agenda. Then conditions that are compared to other countries or units. That's why as the optics, the politics, the same money that you will receive, there is something you call a boomerang as an advocacy strategy. You know, when we were advocating for the African Charter on the rights, I mean on democracy, elections and governance, we discovered that Tanzania would not ratify it. Why would it ratify it? Because the academic was saying that if you are holding elections, you should have an independent court that can settle electoral disputes. Now, the Tanzanian framework is that if you are not comfortable with the election, you petition the Electoral Commission. So, the Electoral Commission becomes a player, a judge, and a jury in the case, which means there is no impartiality. There is no impartiality in that case, because the Electoral Commission cannot rule against itself that it had an unfair and a fraud election. Are we together, friends? So what are we doing to influence Tanzania to ratify the academic? We were going through Uganda, Kenya, and other countries. So for us, we young people in Tanzania, we go and have a youth parliament. We begin engaging Tanzanians and Tanzanian youth, but through organizations like Action Aid, because Action Aid was in Uganda, was in Kenya, not using Action Aid Tanzania. So the boomerang strategy is you're comparing conditions to other countries, and if the political situation does not allow in that country by then, you go through organizations, multilateral agencies like UN agencies, South African Community, IGAD, and the like, to begin influencing that very country which you feel that the situation is not ripe for it. That's called the boomerang strategy. If a condition cannot become a problem, and you want to tie it to a problem, so that you begin influencing it. It's technical, but I know you understand it, and when you read the training manual better, you will know what it means. So how we define a condition determines what the problem is. For instance, in Usoga, when we had the jiggers in Usoga, I have told you an example. People in Karamoja, you go and meet one, they are just putting on that covering. So if you come in your suit, you are beginning saying, this is Papua. But are they? The person who's putting on just one thing and Rugaberi is having 1,000 cows. Those of us who are trying to marry, we are looking for 10 cows and we are not seeing them. That's why we are we are what we are because 10 cows are not coming. But because you're in a company and you have a job, you think someone who's putting on Rugaviris and having that reso in Karamoja is poor. So how we define the condition determine what the problem is? And we must take into context the specifics of it. Agenda setting. Agenda setting has two main issues. One, some issues or problems will find their way onto the political agenda, where others will not. For instance, if you talk on electoral financing, we pushed that bill for some time and it was never passed. Because one, MPs are done so bribe voters to be voted in. So you come and say, let us put a cap on electoral financing. It will not find its way there. It won't even go on other paper. If you talk of transition, Honorable Sam Ramoki in 2017 came up with the transitions bill to allow to create conditions for transitioning of a president. It won't remain in a press conference. It never found its way anyway on the policy agenda. Why? The political situation at that time was not willing for it to be on. But you come up with the policy on employment. It will find its way on the political agenda because the president wants it. And the policy makers are comfortable with it. So some issues will find their way onto it. Others will never. They remain on conditions. And that's why I was talking about the boomerang strategy. We shall come to it, don't worry. Second, some policy solutions will be considered. Others will not be considered. And you should not die if they are not considered. You come back again and strategize. That I provided this was not considered. Bring it again, remain creating the problem until someone sees that it is worth being considered. Second, systemic versus government agenda. Systemic is the public is aware of and may be discussing. Government is that things are considered to be those issues and problems that policymakers are addressing at a certain time. Now, in systemic, we are looking in this thing we are looking, systemic versus government, we are looking at the concept of demand versus supply. Demand-driven advocacy, demand-driven policy influence. That if an MP went to his constituency today, his constituency can tell him, no, MP, you know what, pass for us this law. MP, you know what, increase the budget for this sector, education is suffering. Mr. MP, let schools be reopened. Public is demanding, it is aware and is demanding. So you are creating demand within the public. You are using demand-driven advocacy or policy formulation. Government, that is supply-driven. Government is supplying. Hey, we have this problem on UPE. Let us bring UPE. No one has been consulted. It is the government supplying the solution because it is within the ambit. And if you have to influence policy, you have to, what policies are on the government agenda right now? That's why I tell people, you are in civil society, you don't know the National Manifesto, and you think you want to influence policy. You will bring policy and they will never hand their way to the policy agenda. Because the ruling parties in NRM go and read the manifesto and know if I am in youth, which sectors are focusing on youth. Because when you bring an issue which is on the government agenda, it will be easy to find it for it to find the way onto the political agenda, as opposed to bringing in a completely new issue. Are we together? So inform yourselves. Arm yourselves with knowledge and information on what government is planning to do. If cabinet sits on Monday, read those cabinet resolutions and government is planning this. When you come with the policy solution, it will be easy, as opposed to trying to preach to like a Muslim trying to preach not to eat pork. But if you knew, and if you knew that in my New Year resolutions, I resolve not to go to a bar. You know, the prosper resolve not to go to a bar where you take pork from. Then you can now come and say, but man, you know what? Pork is a staffer. What is called a staffer? I'm not sure. Stop. Because I'm not having it on my agenda. So no, go and read the NRM manifesto. It will help you to come and influence the agenda. So there is a funnel for agenda setting, what we call streams. The first one is the problem stream. The second is the policy stream. The third is the political stream. And all of them should be creating opportunity for agenda items. I see my phone warning me internet connections unstable. I hope I'm still on. So from the problem stream, you're identifying the problems, you're creating the problem. From the policy stream, you are reaching the policy makers. These are the technocrats, commissioners, directors of policy within the ministries, permanent secretary of a ministry, the COW at the sub-county level, the sub-county development officer at that level. Political stream, you are going through the politicians, members of parliament, minister, cabinet, and the like. But at the end of it all those streams should be creating opportunities for agenda items, for your items to appear on the policy agenda. Hallelujah. So are actors, if you are setting the agenda, some are there to put things on the agenda. Others are there to remove things from the agenda. So you must know them. You must know the aspects of power dynamics. For instance, I can tell you, when we were in elections, it was easier for people to have something come onto the policy agenda than the vice president by then second. So the informal and formal actors in the policy agenda, you must be able to know them as you're trying to influence policy. If you are in parliament and you're trying to influence the law, do you know the cracked parliament, the legislative
Prosper, we've lost you.
That is trying to better the bill. Because if you know here from the act, because MPs are breaking.
Yes, but now
you can see I'm on.
Yeah, but now it is clear. No, you breaking.
I will go home and work on the issues of internet. Those who are trying to stop me. in the evening.
Okay.
So the informal actors in agenda setting are always very good. And it is incumbent upon us to understand the aspects and dynamics of power. No power, please. If you want to influence policy, no power. Power is very critical. If you don't know power, we want to do activism, or you want to do advocacy for donors to give you money. You are having hashtags, you are having this, but nothing is being influenced. But if you actually want to influence policy and legislation, understand the dynamics of power and how to play around it. So why does agenda setting matter? Because there's limited space for issues. Every Tuesday, Thursday, when Parliament releases the order paper, you will find about 30 items. But they have 3 hours in which to debate. So if you don't participate in setting the agenda, you may never have your issue come into the space. Second, there is limited space for construction of issues. Because one, we have limited data, what, and everything. Third, more attention usually yields more negative attention. You know, if we remain pushing for one bill of one policy for 3 years and it's not passed, it will begin generating negative attention, and with time people will begin pulling away from it. The more you remain pushing for something, the more people begin scrutinizing and say, but wait, this person is telling us to promote accountability. What are they doing? When they are sending mobile money, how do they send it? This organization is also like them. So, ensure you set the issue on the agenda as fast as possible, so it gets off and you begin pushing some other thing. Then, groups seek attention agenda. If I know MPs, I can give you an example of those of us in the children's rights movement. Maybe I know Save the Children is trying to promote social protection. Now me, I'm coming from one division, from my emphasis is on health, education, and nutrition. But it's the same group we are influencing. You get? We are influencing the same MPs, we are influencing the same ministries. So if the agenda has remained for long, and me, I see that it contributes to the realization of my strategic plan, I will begin getting it off, pushing. Let us push for nutrition now. But we are getting off social protection. Because we all come from different backgrounds. I have different donors, they have different donors. Action has different donors. Maybe Greece has different donors, different forum, different donors, you say different donors. So you must ensure that you get your item on the agenda as fast as possible and off when it is worked on. Getting an issue on the agenda can influence the policy decisions that get adopted. If cabinet knows they want to discuss, for instance, on the adoption of policies to protect children from child marriage, it's already on the agenda, you have set it on. Then it will influence what you begin discussing. If there is already the act, you will be resolved on the order paper. Then when time comes, they will debate it automatically because it's already on the paper and influences. And of course, as you are setting the agenda, you are creating demand for it. The media is writing about it. People are demanding for it. So it becomes easier. Then focusing on events are opportunities for advancing issues or perspectives. And that is very crucial when you have set the agenda. Where were we? Yes. How do issues reach the agenda? 1, changes in indicators. For instance, now if you are trying to influence the budget, you know that the national budget is always cast in stone. It can't be changed. But we have the medium-term expenditure framework, which government issues to guide how it will spend for the next 5 years. So you can go and now look, if government is having a medium-term expenditure framework, are there changes in indicators that I can focus on if I want to influence a budget increase? For instance, the midterm expenditure framework we have was for 2020, COVID had not yet come. So indicators have changed. You can now go and be able to influence indicators around how budget will be done for the next financial year. And you will get it onto the agenda because changes in the indicators have been achieved. Then events. For instance, harmful events. Today, if a landslide happened in H1, and our small houses fall down, government will have to realign its strategy on how to react to the disaster in Chwata. And that means you can bring an agenda there. Issues which affect a particular community of interest. Communities of interest, academia, teachers want more money. You saw the calls about arts and child things. So if you create a good program, you can easily have those issues reaching the agenda. For instance, it will be very easy to find an MP raising a motion on the floor of parliament that arts teachers have been left out because an event has come up, although it was not planned before. Then if issues are known by mass and elite actors simultaneously, elite actors are those of us in civil society, media, and we the crowns who still propagate the colonial thinking, speak English, what, and the like. The third stage is policy formulation. So here you are debating of alternative choices. Here that's where the importance of policy analysis comes in. Do we have a policy analyst here? I used to be a policy analyst. That's why at policy formulation stage now. Because now you are getting the nitty-gritties. And at this stage, if you are formulating and you are an advocate, you need to know who's in charge now, which ministry is in it, which committee of parliament, which department at the district level. Is the department for community development? Is the department for health? So you know. And here actors provide their preferred opinions. For instance, I know government normally invites us. And you provide your preferred opinion. If you cannot convince, they will take it up. So who's involved in the process? Who are the actors? The bureaucracy are the elites. The technical wing, commissioners, directors, officers in the ministries, and the like. That's the bureaucracy, the technocracy. Legislature and staff, are they the MPs in it? Which interest groups or pressure groups are interested? Is it the church? Is it the media? Are they professional groups like teachers, doctors? Is it civil society and the like? So at that stage, you must know those actors and help in formulation. And you must ensure that the policy you are formulating at that stage takes into interest the different aspirations of the interest groups are mentioned there. Otherwise, I know some NGOs influence the Ministry of Health to pass some guidelines which are policies in themselves, but the ministry has refused to implement because the technocrats, the bureaucracy is not happy. They believe once those things are put in place, their powers are reduced. So they're not. It's not yet adopted. So you must know the bureaucracy and try at that stage try to appease everyone, because it's a give and take. You are negotiating. You take this, you give this, you lose this. You take this, you lose this. So that is it. It's a give and take at that stage. Decision making here, there are trade-offs between two values. There are fiscal considerations. For instance, if it's an act of parliament, is there a certificate of financial implication? If we pass a law, what does it imply on the economy of the country? Do we have to bring a separate budget? You get? So you begin making those considerations. Political feasibility. Does it play into the political agenda we have? If I'm in a realm and my interest that in the 5 years, the country is prosperous and middle income, is the policy you are bringing helping me to achieve that aspiration? So these are trade-offs. And this is why we have this question: why are policies selected over others? Why do you have policies that have been shelved? I know one of them is the nutritional policy of 2009. It has been shelved up to that time, not passed, not even debated. So the feasibility politically is always important. And is the best option always chosen? Most times, no. Because the best option may not be politically feasible. So we shall go for what is more politically feasible. For instance, if we are to end corruption, the most feasible one would be maybe life imprisonment. So that people are deterred from engaging. But what if the one who has stolen the money is your brother? Do you imprison them for life? So you will say, no, a fine of this, let us make them sell and recover money. So you know you can go steal money. If they arrest me, they sell property and recover. And I'm still able to work. So the best option is not always chosen because sometimes not politically feasible. And you must understand that. And then how appropriate is government action? Are you garnering support? So at decision making, we're dealing with two major issues: substance of the policy and the policy of adopting the process of adopting the policy. The substance is those things I've talked about. Is it the right problem? Are you providing? What are the trade-offs? Is everyone happy in that policy? Because if today you say we have traffic jam in Kampala, and studies have been undertaken showing the cost of traffic jam, economically, I think it's about 3 trillion per annum that is lost in traffic jam. But if you say let us remove taxis from Kampala, what of the taxi drivers? Where will they go? You get? So if I am a commissioner and I own 10 taxis in Kampala, and you say you are removing them, so where is my business going? If I am in KCC and I'm employed only to collect money from taxis, and you have expelled them, where am I going? If you're constructing a market, one day a market, what of the woman who has been selling using an umbrella? The substance of the policy is always very important. Anyone is not to be affected, there must be a solution for them. If you want to mine oil in Unyoro sub-region, what of them belongs to remove from their land? Do you have a feasible alternative? Are you giving them a separate? Are you giving them new land? Are you giving them good compensation that when they use that they don't complain? So the substance of the policy, these two processes are very important and you must know them. And they involve trade-offs, they involve fiscal considerations, they involve political. So at the implementation stage here, what you can only do is maybe influence how implementation is done by advising. So where the actual intervention is taken or is seen, you can advise on we are looking at activities which put programs into effect, money spent, laws passed, regulations formulated. You can influence a little bit. For instance, on regulations formulated. If we have a law, if we have this livelihood program, can you do that? You can influence that at that stage. So implementation is mainly done by the executive branch of government through regulations. Why? The executive formulates if it is a law and gives parliament, which legislates, passes. Interpretation is done by the judiciary. But the executive is also mandated with implementation. If it is a law, we have the state, which is part of the executive. The state, we are looking at the police, we are looking at the army, intelligence services, prisons. If you break a law, we take you there, in prison. We have to have the intelligence for it to be able to know, Frank is doing something here. Let us stop him. The army to protect and ensure the state is strong. The police to maintain law and order and get to those who are breaking the laws. But then we have the technical arm also, which are the ministries. So ministries have different policies which they ensure they are implemented. Their programs. I know, for instance, youth level program is under the Ministry of Gender. So it is always a process of the executive arm of government through its different entities, the state, the intelligence service. The technical wing looked through the ministries, where we have permanent secretaries, we have commissioners, directors, chief administrative officers at the district level, CDOs, and the like. And then also the political wing of the executive, the president, cabinet, who are the ministers. You look at the district level chairperson, the councillors, and the like. So those, for them, implementation is mainly them, government. So one of the problematic aspects of the policy process is failure to implement. And most of the questions that were being asked after in the Q&A on implementation, we always have very good laws, very good policies, very good programs, but the problem is implementation. In policy, we call it window dressing. So here, because we normally we look at it, the problems are some of the of the reasons are we normally design the design and quality of the policies is very poor. We design without putting into perspective the big thing. As I told you, you sit there and say, but women in Ghana are suffering. Why are they suffering? They're walking long distances to fetch water. So let us give them bowels. You give them bowels, they refuse to use the bowels. Because for them, they prefer walking long distances because they can win Kabozi and jazz. So in the design of the policy, those from definition, you must ensure that every process is taken. But if you don't do it, you will have a policy, you put in the money and nothing is done. You come, for instance, you try with a program. Why has it failed? One, because its design is around the political nature. It is passed by, the president is the one who launches it, so you think the money is from the president. The common man there will know this is president's money. You come with a yoga, very good initiative, very good policy, but you launch it in electoral time. So people know they are getting Kasimo for voting you. So the design and the quality of the policies must be at top notch for them to be successful. Then coordination, communication, collaboration, and coherence challenges. If, as we have talked, I think it was Sylvia, yeah, if I remember, who said that, yes, we have very many policies, but don't know about them. Now, if the ministry adopts a policy, the ministry should be wise enough to know that they cannot implement the policy on their own. So it's upon them to ensure the policy goes to the grassroots districts, and districts to ensure that the policy goes to the sub-county, the sub-county to ensure that the policy goes to the parish for implementation. So the coordination between the different arms of government is crucial. Collaboration. So now, for instance, we have the national child policy. It is under the oversight of the Ministry of Gender. But the national child policy has aspects of health. Ministry of Gender has no one in health. So it has to be able to coordinate with the Ministry of Health. So aspects of children's health are handled by the Ministry of Health. It has aspects on education. It should be wise enough to know that it cannot implement education. UPE, UCE, is under the preserve of the Ministry of Education. So how would you coordinate? Now, to do this, the government is always creating interministerial IPCs. So interministerial policy committees look at policies which have cross-cutting themes, which go beyond different ministries. Maybe one policy needs about 10 ministries to implement. So you create an interministerial policy committee, IPC, to ensure coordination, so that the policy is closely implemented. Now, if you're an advocate, you must now know which policy needs an IPC. How do I get enrolled into an IPC so that I can inform right away from implementation? I hope I'm clear on that and people are understanding it. Insufficient resources. Sometimes we legislate, we formulate policies and not give them enough budgets. At one division, we normally do a report called counting pennies. If you're passing the laws, which budgets are you apportioning? Because it takes pennies. The money factor. That's why girls don't like us if you don't have money. The money factor is always very important. If you have a policy and don't have the sufficient budgets for it, you are wasting time. So you must have the budget, the resources, and those ones are both manpower and financial. If you're passing a policy and you know the needs, an agency create staff for it. Equal Opportunities Commission, so that it can oversee the implementation of equality and equal opportunity access by all Ugandans. If you just have it in law or in policy, it will not be done. So after that, when you're implementing, you need the evaluation and feedback. So how are they evaluated? Someone was asking the question. The first one is scientifically. You do a study. If it's a law, post legislative scrutiny, PCL, PRS, for a law. A policy, you do a policy review. You move around, evaluate. So if we, in 2020, how many people are unemployed? 2021, how many people are unemployed when the policy was passed? You evaluate them. Politically, through political statements, the president comes and says, in 1996, we are collecting 500 billion in taxes. We are now collecting 18 trillion shillings per year in taxes. We have grown as a country. That is a valuation of his policies, economic policies. So I can come and say, you see, the economy is working because in a space of 35 years, we have gone from 500 billion shillings to 8 trillion shillings. So the economy has grown. The policies we have put in place have been working. I am politically evaluating the policies and programs. What happens to programs that don't work? What do we mean by don't work? Does failure mean we repress the policy? Don't work is, as we have been saying, either the policy is there, it doesn't work because it is bad, it doesn't work simply because the necessary resources have not been put in, necessary infrastructure is not into it. So what you do, you look at coming up with new models, making it work. If it is bad, you retire it. If it's a policy, you retire it and come up with a new policy. If it is a law, you amend it, or actually even decade unconstitutional and it becomes obsolete. So evaluation is a step that is most times disregarded. If for NGOs, because we report to donors, after a policy has been passed, you're going to make your reports and stop there. How many policies influenced? 2 policies. Donors, this is the best advocate we have. They will bring in the money. You don't want to see implementation and evaluation. So you normally disregard it. Again, it's difficult to identify the goals of a program and if they were achieved. Because as we have said, policy is big. Problems are big. They have different facts on them. Problems change over time. Then, also it is the same thing. Those of you in NGOs, you know, when you are writing project proposals, this project will benefit 500 direct beneficiaries and 300 indirect beneficiaries. So because there are different types of impact, it becomes quite hard to evaluate government programs and policies because of that aspect of direct and indirect beneficiaries. Then some impacts are short-term, others are long-term. Maybe someone who has gotten 3 million from Youth Venture Capital Fund today could be reached in 20 years. But by that time, the program would have expired. So you will say it was a failure based on short-term evaluation. But in long term, the person could say, the money I got 20 years back. I bought some goats. I began rearing goats. Now I've bought UBC land at 10 billion from goats, from selling goats. From the 3 million you gave to buy those goats. So because we have different types of impact, it becomes hard to evaluate. If you go by the short term, you may lose it. If you go by the long term, you may equally lose it. Are we clear? So hopefully the thinking is that when you evaluate a policy, you're able to feed that information back into the policy process. When we are coming back in design again, that you can use this information and feed it into the policy process. So this is the policy process, and you must know where you come in to begin influencing. Definition, agenda formulation, adoption, implementation, evaluation, and redefinition. You can provide data and information at problem definition, and the government will take it up. Or the policymaker will take it up if you have it, because they actually even ask us for the information. At agenda formation, you can influence the formation of the agenda and having the issue appear there. Adoption is government now. The ministry sits, adopts text cabinet for adoption, or parliament. MPs are sitting. They don't even allow you in their chambers. You can only go in the garage. So there it is outside your hands. Implementation, you can provide alternatives during implementation. You can also help in evaluation. But if you are working for a donor to give you money, you are a civil society organization, what the policy advocacy they measure for donors is at adoption stage. You will go, hey, we have influenced national child policy. What are the indicators? You show them how you went through it. Donors will praise you for doing great work. That was more than 1 hour of talking. We can do a question and answer session now and be out of here by 1. A question and answer for maybe 20 minutes. Tomorrow I will try to work on the Mentimeter, and maybe you can also go read about it, or now you can write it. Yes. So tomorrow we are more interactive.
Yes, thank you so much, Prosper. There is a hand from Vincent. Vincent, you can go ahead. You can unmute.
Hello.